You do not need to look any further than right here at our ports in Los Angeles, for instance. 1/3 of US, or almost 40% of US trade comes through our ports. 500,000 jobs have been created because of those imports. 500,000 jobs. Throughout our entire state, one out of 7 jobs that are trade-related. We export more than $120 billion of goods in 220 different foreign markets. For California, the world is our marketplace. And that is why I've gone, like I said, on those trade missions to China and to Japan, to Canada and to Mexico, to Germany, to Israel, and the list goes on and on. And we will continue this year also to go on trade missions and to sell California. Because I always said you can have the best product in the world, but if the people don't know about it, you have nothing. It's all about marketing, publicizing, promoting, going on trade missions, and so on. I go to expand California's markets and sell California products because they're, of course, the best products in the world. And one is so proud when you go overseas and you know that you have the best products. California is #1 in so many things. 2 years ago, for the first time, for instance, to show you how our trade mission to China paid off. 2 years ago, for the first time in history, California's strawberries were legally exported to Beijing for the Olympics. Now, those Olympic athletes did not ask for Iowa strawberries. They did not ask for Florida strawberries or for Texan strawberries. They just simply asked for the biggest, the reddest, the juiciest, and the best tasting strawberries, and they called California. It's as simple as that. The businesses around the world want to take advantage of our innovations in medicine, stem cell research, computers, and so on, because California is on the cutting edge of in so many areas. If it's high tech, biotech, green tech, nanotech, aerospace, entertainment, agriculture, and the list goes on and on. Why would we possibly want to limit the number of customers to all of those products? Why? No, we want to expand. In addition to export, it's also great when foreign companies invest right here in California. Just last week, I joined Mayor Villaraigosa, and Gary was there when we were at the City Hall, right in front of the City Hall, celebrating. We announced that the Chinese car manufacturer, BYD, would locate its North American headquarters right here to Los Angeles and create another 150 jobs. I mean, think about that. This company is coming here, and that's the great thing. When I go overseas, how many people come to me and say, we want to form partnerships with California companies, or we want to relocate and do business in California. In fact, foreign-owned businesses employ 600,000 Californians, more than in any other state in the United States, because we are sizzling. We are a hot place. People love California. That's the bottom line. We are the #1 place in the world, the most desirable place to go to. So there's a lot of great action happening right here. But there's still more markets that have to open up. There's much more potential there. We have not reached 100% of our potential, but in order to do that, and to take advantage of that, we need the federal government, of course, to help us. We need the federal government to help us with that. And so in the State of the Union address, President Obama has talked about that he pledged to double America's export in 5 years. Of course, this was music to my ears. And I congratulated him for his great vision. It's very important, but now we need to see the action. It's very important because today, as I speak here today, there are 3 trade agreements gathering dust in the halls of Congress. Trade agreements with Panama, with Colombia, and with Korea. The Korean one is, of course, very, very important to us, very important for our state, since much of that trade will come right through our ports. Together, it's estimated that these 3 agreements will create an extra $10 billion of exports for our country and will create tens of thousands of jobs. So the day I call on Congress and I call on the President to approve those treaties so we can start putting people back to work, not next month or next year, but immediately. That is what we need to do. They all talk about job creation. Well, that will be a great job creation to go and to approve those bills. But of course, the federal government is not alone responsible for job creation and getting our economy back. think that our state is responsible too. And that's why I urged the legislators and worked with the legislators very closely. In my State of the State, I talked about the job creation package, and several of those bills have already been passed down. I signed them, so we're moving forward, but there's much more that needs to be done, especially when it comes to education. How important education is to California's economy and to California's competitiveness in the global economy. So both to maintain our competitive edge and to give our kids a chance to succeed, we simply must reform education. We must also invest in education. Now, the last few years have been tough, of course, when it comes to funding education, because a lot of programs had to be cut because of a $60 billion deficit that we had last year. We have an additional $20 billion deficit. But one thing is clear, our economy, our future cannot afford more cuts in education. And that's why even with a $20 billion deficit, my budget gives our kindergarten through 12th grade schools the same funding as last year. And for higher education, I propose to increase the funding by $2 billion. And I will not sign a budget when the numbers are below that, may I remind you, because education is that important to me. This is our future. But we must also think long-term. We cannot continue sending our education, our schools, and our kids on this evil roller coaster ride as we have. That one year we have a spike in revenues, and then we do all the funding in the world, and then the next year we have a drop in revenues, and then all of a sudden we have to lay off teachers. That is unfair. So this is why I say it is very important for us, in order to move forward successfully, to go and to create an environment where we have stable funding for education and for so many other programs. This is why I urge the legislature to go and to really reform our budget system. That for the first time we put together a rainy day fund. So when we have a spike in revenues, let's not spend all of this money each time. Let's put some of that money aside and put it into a rainy day fund. So when we have a drop in revenues, we can at least protect our children. If we would have had a rainy day fund of 12.5% as I have proposed, we would have $12.5 billion set aside. Now, you assume that there's a 4-year problem. We would have divided it into 4. We would have had $3 billion set aside. $1 billion could have gone each year to higher education, to our universities, and the other $2 billion to kindergarten through 12. That would have been absolutely fantastic. But no, they didn't want to do that. They wanted to spend all the money each year. So I hope that we now, this year, have reform. And the other thing we have to do is we have to reform our tax system. We have a volatile tax system that relies so much on income tax and capital gains tax. So when we have a drop in our economy of 2.8% as we had last year, we have a drop in revenues by 27%. That's irresponsible. Our tax system is based on what is happening on Wall Street rather than what is happening to our economy here in California. So this is why it is important we reform also that and create a much more stable source of revenues. And then, of course, like I said, I've been talking about that since January, which is that we have to reform our public pension system, because that is crowding out right now programs like education, kindergarten through 12, and higher education. Just in CalPERS, it has increased from $150 million 10 years ago to now $3 billion a year, just at one pension. That is an increase of 2,000% in the last 10 years. 2,000%, when our revenues only increased by 26%. So that is very, very dangerous for the state of California, because eventually that $3 billion will go to $10 billion a year in a very short period of time. That's why we need to reform our pension system and give the new employers the kind of benefits that they got before 1999. So those are the kind of things that we need to do. If we fix those things, California will continue to stay the golden dream by the sea, the greatest place in the world. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.